Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and I have too many cameras. Now, some of these cameras are great, and some of them aren't. And ultimately, what I want to do is, I want to take all this off real quick, but I want to show you the video quality, and ultimately decide if the camera matters more, the lens matters more, or, you know, what actually matters. Because there's some that are really cheap cameras, like for example, this one right here. And then there's some that are very expensive cameras, like this one right here. And I want to go over all of these cameras briefly and show you what they look like and explain why I like them and why you might like them. So let's switch to one. So this one is the Lumix or Panasonic FZ300. It's a 12 megapixel sensor at f2.8 all the way through. And it goes from 25 millimeters to 600 millimeters full frame equivalent. This is a 1/2.3 inch sensor, and what you're seeing is straight out of camera. That's it. Obviously, I'm not going to be recording the mic because I'm far away. I'm at about 50 millimeters is what the camera is saying, at least. And this is what it's going to look like when it comes to focusing. I guess maybe it does some autofocus, but if you're doing some talking heads, I guess this would be okay. But 1/2 is not great compared to your phone's camera, which is generally a lot bigger than that. So if you're going to shoot at 24, so let's go, oops. So if you're going to shoot at 20, this is 27 millimeters actually, it's not going to 25 for some reason. But if you're going to shoot like this is what it's going to look like. Generally, your phone's going to be shooting at 23 to 60 millimeters. And you can zoom all the way in on this. This would be, let's just say this is about 70 millimeters. Okay, so not that bad. But the benefit you get is that this does go all the way to 600 millimeters. I don't know if it's doing a good job catching focus. Not really. But this is at 250 millimeters, so it goes even farther than that, which I don't know if you want to do that. Yeah. This is saying 648. Can't even tell that I'm talking. But either way, back at about 50 millimeters, this is what it's going to look like. Normal daylight. I'm in the shade, but this is a decent amount of light. As for pricing, this camera came out in 2015, so I'm seeing some for about $500 used, about $400 used, maybe even cheaper. If you want to buy mine, it has a crack in the screen. Let's just say about $300 to $500 used is what you can get this for. It's not going to be a lot better than what your phone can do, other than when you can zoom. But again, we're talking about stuff that's 10 years old, so it's not going to be as great as what your phone can do. Okay, so the next camera that I have is the Sony A6500, and just like the Lumix, I am going to be shooting at 4K 30 frames per second. It's going to be at 1/60. The Lumix actually has a flippy screen, just like some of these other cameras. This one, however, does not. Unfortunately, on the A6500, it doesn't even flip up towards me so I can see everything. It's a tilting screen like, well, most of the cameras that I have right here. As for pricing, the A6500, we're looking at about $660 used on B&H, and we're looking at about $690 used on MPB, which is a lot because normally when I would see these, they're about $300 to $500. So I guess that's actually a decent amount. It's a 24.2 megapixel sensor, although I believe it only shows 20 megapixels, so I don't know about that. It is an APS-C camera. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I am trying to shoot at 50 millimeters, equivalent at f2.8, which technically won't even be f2.8, but at least this is an APS-C lens, so 2.8 times 1.5, that's what the aperture would be. This is what it looks like. It's a nice compact camera that does video, so it's not really video focused, kind of like how that Panasonic isn't really video focused, but it does do video. At least this one, just like the Panasonic, takes a memory card. It doesn't require CF Express A. So again, not really video focused, but it does video. And like I said, it doesn't have a flippy screen. So, you know, you can't really do selfies or video vlogging or anything like that. Also, I'm using the 24 to 70 f2.8 Sigma EF lens adapted to the E-mount, which that camera lens itself is larger than the camera and heavier than the camera. So you definitely don't want to use this in general for vlogging. But either way, let's get to the next camera. Now we're moving on to one of my favorites, although I'm starting to realize maybe we might be not properly exposed, but whatever, for sake of this video, I just want it to be about the same. This time we're doing 4K 60 at 1/125, which is what we're going to do on, I believe, the next three cameras. So this is the Canon R7. This is a 32.5 megapixel APS-C lens. Nope, not how you say that. So this is a 32.5 APS-C camera, and I believe just like all the other cameras, they do all have IBIS. There's really only one camera that I have that doesn't have in-body image stabilization. This lens does have stabilization as well, so I guess it's not that huge of a deal. But we are doing 4K 60 frames per second on this, like I said, and that's the highest that it can go to. Just like pretty much all these cameras, we're just going to go to the highest 4K that we can do, because none of them can do 4K 120, except for the Sony, technically, but we're not going to do that for filming like this. Either way, looking online, these look like they go for about $1,500. There are some cheaper ones. I would say probably $1,000 is the lowest that you're going to find. So about $1,000 to $1,500, which seems like a lot. It makes you consider maybe buying the Canon R6 Mark II, I guess. But one, you'd probably want to wait for the Mark III, and two, this actually has more megapixels for photos. So if you want to use this as a hybrid shooter and you can't afford the Canon R5, this is actually a really great camera. This technically won't be considered out of camera just because I'm not using the Canon profile. I believe it's going to be Canon C-Log 3 or C-Log 3. I don't know how you would say that. And I'm just going to adjust for that in post. I'm not going to do anything too crazy. This is an RF lens, so there's really only one camera that has a native lens. But yeah, this is what it looks like. I like it for the autofocus and being able to move around and have it still track you. That's really nice. And yeah, I would say overall it's a great camera for video and for photo if you're trying to do anything. Of all of these cameras so far, I would recommend this one, but as we go on to newer cameras, it is going to get more expensive. So this is kind of like in the mid, technically lower, but mid-range in pricing. It does take two memory cards, which is nice, two SD cards, so you can do redundant video, but also, you know, just have another one just in case, or, you know, have two 1 terabyte or two 256. I don't know, do what you want. It does have a flippy screen. They're all 3-inch screens, so they all kind of suck, but at least it has a flippy screen. You can record yourself and actually see what you're doing. Now this next one is the Fujifilm X100VI, and this one's a little bit weird because it's a 23mm fixed lens f2, which is what I'm shooting at right now. But obviously you can see more stuff around me. I can't zoom into that 50mm. Technically I could, but then if you take the 4K, you'd be getting a 4 megapixel shot, which is not really great. It is a 40 megapixel sensor, so I guess you could probably do that. I'm looking at the aperture and I can't see myself because there's no flippy screen. I'm looking at the aperture and it looks like it is kind of closed a little bit. No, it's at f2. So I don't know why it looks like it's closed. Maybe that's normal. Maybe I'm just noticing because I'm looking at the actual lens itself. But yeah, I would say autofocus is pretty decent. This is on Provia standard, so in theory I shouldn't really have to do any color grading. This should be as close to out of the camera as I can get. But yeah, not having that flippy screen and just being a Fuji in general with a fixed lens, this isn't really meant for talking heads. I mean, I guess you could technically be behind the camera. You can do 6K video at, I think, 30 frames per second, something like that. And it is a 40 megapixel sensor, so it's actually a pretty good camera, but not really great for recording yourself. Maybe decent for recording other people, but not really great for recording yourself. It does take a single memory card as well, but there are a lot of options that you can do on this camera. So, you know, whatever you think is best. As for pricing, this is not great. I got mine before they raised the price, so I was able to get mine at about $1,700, and then they raised it up to $1,800. You can find some used for over $2,000. Yeah, so if you can find it, probably going to be paying a lot of money. Not really worth what you're getting unless you want to use it for a camera, but for video, I would not put this on the list. I'm just doing this just for filler, technically. All right, I feel really stupid because there's a tally light on here and I didn't realize that I wasn't recording, but let me tell you again, this is the BlackMagic 6K full frame, and when I bought this camera, it was about $1,800 because I bought it on the sale. It was normally about $2,500 or $2,600. Now, this has gone from a mid-range camera to a high-end camera because now it is $3,100, at least on B&H, which is pretty crazy. It is a 6K full frame sensor. It is open gate as well, so you can get 6K 36 frames per second, which is weird, but I guess that's what they do for music videos. Of course, right now I'm recording 4K 60 frames per second at B-RAW, so I'm trying to rush this. It is 8:1, but you know, it is B-RAW. It still pulls a lot of energy, battery, and you know, all that good stuff. It does have a dual native ISO at 400 and 3200, but the 3200, let's be honest, is kind of useless. It does take CF Express B cards, which is nice. This is like the only thing that takes CF Express that I have, except for the Sony, which takes the A. Not really great. So trying to figure out exactly what this is, it's 6,048 times 4,032, which is about a 24 megapixel sensor, which doesn't really matter because this is used for video, not for photos. It has a stills button, but they call it a stills button instead of a photo button or a camera button or anything like that because this is made for video. It is awkward because the screen doesn't flip towards you, so you can't really see yourself when you are recording, but I mean, manual focus is what we're dealing with. There is an option for autofocusing, but if you are recording yourself, sometimes it is hit or miss. Every time I try it, it doesn't really do that well, except for a few times I tried it and it actually held pretty well. But if you're recording yourself, you want to make sure that you're recording yourself perfectly. So I'm trying to stay as still as possible in manual focus to get this video. Great camera during the day, amazing image during the day. Nighttime, it doesn't really benefit from having that full frame sensor, but what are you gonna do? And the last one that I have here is the Sony FX3. Now I'm shooting at about 50 millimeters, and this is probably, obviously, the best. If I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the Canon R7, but this is going to be the best image that you're gonna get, the best autofocus, the best everything. But it is also a $4,000 camera. This camera goes for about $4,000, and the FX3B goes for $4,100. So if you can find the regular FX3, I say regular even though the B, they removed a few things and they changed the screen that you're seeing a little bit, but ultimately you're gonna get this camera for $4,000, and that's kind of what it's made for. It's made for video. It does photos. It does actually really great photos as well. It is only 12 megapixels. You can do 4K all the way up to 120. I believe there is a crop, but at least you have that option. Right now we're shooting at 4K 60 as usual, and we're shooting at 1/160. Let me change that. Now we're actually shooting at 1/125. Might have not noticed too much of a difference, but you know, I just want to make sure that we're trying to stay as close as possible to all those other cameras. So is this a great camera? Yes. This is probably even better because you can do talking heads like this, and you also have very great stabilization, very great focusing. Like I was saying, the BlackMagic is great for the video, but it's not really great for autofocusing as they're barely starting to do that, and it's not great for image stabilization because it simply doesn't have image stabilization. Having a lens with image stabilization is great, but it doesn't really fix everything. But for some reason, I wanted to show you all the different video options. If you are going to decide to do something like this, like a talking head, or record yourself or record other people, at least I can show you some of the options that are out there. If you look at what these cameras are and you look at the sensors that are in them, and compare them to other cameras that have similar sensors. Like for example, this is the FX3. It has the same sensor as the ZV-E1, as well as I believe the FX6. Then at least you'll know maybe you might like that sensor in a different style, like the A7S III, which is surprising that that is supposed to be a photo camera first, even though it does video better. And that's why they made the FX3, is to replace that. Just like the ZVE one was kind of like to replace that as well. By the way, all these have EVFs. I would say that the Fuji is probably the best. Then maybe the Canon, and then the Sony. The Panasonic is terrible. What's funny is we've come full circle because we started with a 12 megapixel camera, and now we're at this 12 megapixel camera as well. And I think that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I don't know what everything looks like, so I'll let you decide which one looks the best, and I'll let you decide which one looks the best for the price. And yeah, if you like these types of videos, let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed them. And as always, thanks for watching.